Hey folks, how you doing? Dan Zastrow, pleasure to have you here, and welcome to day 5 of the 44th Mill Valley Film Festival. I'm extremely pleased to be able to be up here to present this film to you. Jimmy Chen and Chai Vasarhelyi brought us Free Solo a couple years ago, which was an amazing hit at the festival. And then we were lucky enough to bring it here to the Rafael for regular screenings, and I think we broke a few records that year. We're definitely one of the most attended theaters in the country with that film. So I expect no less from this film, The Rescue, which is marvelous. You're in for an amazing, amazing treat. I want to do a quick thank you to the sponsor of this particular screening, and that would be Bank of Marin. We thank them for their support. And I'd also like to do a special shout out to Greenwich Entertainment, which is the distributor, and National Geographic for allowing us to bring this to the festival and bring it to you online too. We're streaming this, so we thank them so much for their support. We've worked with them for many years, and they're friends of the festival and friends of the Rafael, so thank you to them very much. Please. I think what I'd like to do right now, before we get started, because let's get into the film, we have a guest. I think we should bring Jimmy Chen up here to say a couple words to us. Jimmy.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dan.
I think we had Chai here for Free Solo, so this is your chance to be here with the festival.
Yes.
Yes.
And we screened Meru here.
And you screened Meru. That's right. I'm sorry. There were a few years before that.
Yeah.
So we're the trifecta.
So I'm very familiar with this
the trifecta.
crowd.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to say a couple thank yous and just let you absorb the film afterwards. But first of all, thank you to you all for being here today. You're some of the first people to see it publicly, and it's always a joy to finally be able to, when you work on a film for several years, to get it out in front of audiences. Of course, thank you, Mill Valley Film Festival, for having us again. Feels like family. We keep coming back. I love the Bay Area. And also, as he mentioned, this community has been a huge supporter of our films, and we do not take that for granted. So thank you. I gotta thank National Geographic Documentary Films for supporting this film. They also, worked with us on Free Solo, and they've been incredible partners. And we just really hope that you enjoy this film. We really felt like it was a timely film and a moving story, given how divided the world is and polarized this country is. This is a story that's about really our common humanity. And I won't say much more, but I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
We'll be back for a conversation afterwards, and we'll have a special guest to join us on stage too. Enjoy the show. All right, folks. Oh my goodness. That's what we need, something uplifting like that. Just amazing. Please welcome back to the stage, Jimmy Chen.
Thank you. Thank you. This is why I love coming here. Thank you.
This town knows good film. Yes, I do. Do we want to bring our guest up now?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a subject of the film.
We have a special guest here. Yeah. Thanet Natisri, who is an executive producer on this film, and so much more. And hugely important to the actual rescue.
And I'm going to grab you a mic.
Yeah, Thanet was involved on many levels of making this film. But for the actual rescue, he managed the water diversion aspects, which the divers have said repeatedly they could not have done the rescue without the work that Thanet did. So Do you want to introduce? There's actually a couple more special guests. We'll just call them out. And
Yeah. So we have a really, really special guest for us today who just flew from Thailand. He was one of the army officers who were in charge of the whole rescue, basically like pumping the waters, assisting the diver in the cave, as well as like help me with water diversion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Singhanat for Royal Thai Army.
and the major. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we also have the majors, Major Sanya Pa from Royal Thai Army as well in the back.
Yeah, say hi. There you go. Yeah, you should have done both at the same time, but that's okay. Come in. Thank you.
So the obvious question, from the mountaintops to cave diving or jumping in mud puddles, as the divers like to call it, what brought you to the story?
Well, we followed the whole story as it was unfolding,
As we all did, yeah.
And much like a lot of people around the world, and just all the ups and downs of the story, we were totally riveted, and I think as parents, any parent was, probably very empathetic to the families involved. But we weren't really thinking about it as a film until much later. And but we were really, trying to make a decision about the next film we were going to work on after Free Solo. And,
Yeah, after Free Solo, your next picture was going to be like, what are they going to do now?
right. And we were like, well, what are we going to do next, right? But this story really moved us. I mean, the projects and the films that we want to make are films that have, universal themes that hopefully transcend even the subject and the events. And the subtext of these stories is really important to us. And this was a story about, especially given the times and how divided the world is and how polarized the country is. Like, this was a story about our common humanity and about the positive generosity that we as humans have the capacity to have and to do.
And amazing to say, it held our attention for 3 weeks while this happened.
Yeah.
People were riveted to this story.
Yeah. And so it had a lot of layers to it, of course. Unlikely heroes. But really, this is a story about a global community of people who came together from different countries, different continents, different cultural backgrounds, different belief systems, who really set aside all their differences to try to make the impossible happen. And we just felt like that was a really important story to tell right now.
Yeah, but there are some, as I'm watching, I'm thinking about your other work and the folks you've covered. These divers have an ethos that seems similar to the climbers you've documented, in just everyday guys. They're not out for glory. They're just doing their thing.
Yeah.
And in this case, they find their thing is
Yeah.
life-saving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people say, "Oh, you went from the mountaintops to the bottom of these caves," but the characters, have so many similar parallels and traits. I mean, they have found their calling in cave diving, much like climbers or big mountain snowboarders or high altitude mountaineers. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a sport. And they're deeply passionate about it. They find meaning and purpose in it. But in this case, it's not just their lives that are at stake. It's not their personal decisions to take certain risks. There are 13 lives at stake here. And, it's just, I think, extraordinary, as you have seen in the film, they had everything to lose, you know. They are the only people that can help someone. And this is the big question, like if you are the only person or group that can help someone, but you have everything to lose, do you still help them? And it wasn't even a question for them. I mean, they assumed that everybody would die. They assumed it would be a success if one person lived. And given the stakes, I mean, it wasn't just their kind of, you know, the psychological trauma, but also their personal psychological trauma. But
And you see them struggling with that all the time. What are
Yeah.
we doing?
And
We're
well,
not
their
experts, right.
reputations. I mean, talk about Dr. Harris. He's an anesthesiologist. If these kids die, he would be the doctor that was known for killing 13 people, you know, and he knew that. He knew that, and he still did it. And that you know, to do the right thing when you have everything to lose, I mean, that, you know, so the story is also about moral responsibility, right? And being the best version of yourself. And if we could all be the best version of ourselves, given the times we're living in,
Or
we'd
being
live in a
heroes.
different world.
Being heroes
Yeah.
without seeking it. Because that's
Yeah.
what they did. They didn't
Yeah.
seek it. And they really are heroes.
Yeah.
You as well, you know, with the work you did. It's, you know, so what was your thoughts when you came? I know you came on the scene of the cave like 4 days into the kids going in. What was your thoughts when you saw this situation?
I mean, it's complicated situation. We just don't know what was happening to the kid. We just, we don't know where they were. At that point, we just like, were they in the cave, or were they just like wandering across to our neighbor country like Myanmar? Would they be eaten by tigers? Who knows? But yeah, the possibility is that we just don't know that we're gonna find a kid,
Yeah. It's like the the 21st century version of boy falls in well, but not. It was something more. It really was, I should say, an international effort. But it's a departure for you in filmmaking in that you've, especially with Free Solo, you were documenting what was happening at the time, and you have a film here where you were telling a story that had happened. I saw some wonderful recreation footage, but how much actual footage do you have to work with for this?
Well, we started very little, like we were working on fumes. There was global media attention, but all of that footage was kind of unusable except for like these news clips, right? Because none of the principal action inside of the cave, was filmed. There were no civilians allowed inside the cave to film. And none of our main characters of the film were on camera. As you saw, the divers were constantly hiding from the cameras. They did not want to be on camera. They did not know the outcome, right? They don't want to be seen, spread across the entire planet as the divers that failed, because they assumed they were going to fail. So we had very little footage inside of the cave. There's a few known clips, the shots of Dr. Harris anesthetizing the children. He had that GoPro shot up there. We acquired that very early on. But otherwise, there was not much. And then we heard rumor that the Thai Navy SEALs had been filming in the cave. We spent 2 years negotiating with them, trying to get the footage. And we had no idea what they had. And Thanet was instrumental in helping us acquire that. But it took 2 years. They run covert operations. They do not publicize what they're doing. They're not incentivized.
Not used to giving over their footage.
No. And there's a lot of classified information. Like there's active operators that are in the film, which you can see their faces
had a lot
are
of blurred out images
yeah.
too. That was.
So, and that was one of the limitations of making a film during COVID. Like we had to do all the interviews via Zoom, local camera crews filming them, Australia, Thailand, the UK, and then us doing interviews at like 4 in the morning, trying to. But we also normally would just go to Thailand and go meet with the Thai Navy SEALs, establish, that human connection, that rapport and trust.
Because there's a lot of people looking at this story now, right?
Yeah. And we're trying to convince, we it's a lot easier to do in person than on Zoom. And so Chai finally got her second vaccination, flew to Thailand, did her 2-week quarantine. Thanet and Chai went to the Thai Admiral's house. It was like, we're here. And then they were able to convince them to let us use the footage, but they wouldn't hand it over. They sent a couple delegates from the Thai Navy SEALs with a briefcase, with the drives in the briefcase, flew to our edit studio.
Let you pick what they let you have of it, or?
Yeah, and they had 90 hours of footage. Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. And unbelievable footage, like footage we didn't even dream of existing, like the shots of Rick and John coming out of the water in Chamber 3 after they found the kids and being like, 13 alive, that there's a note from the kid, like we were just watching this stuff being like, no way. But the problem was we got it in mid-June, and picture lock was June 1st. So we already had a film, and then we had to break it open and recut because it was, it just really enriched bringing people into the space and showing the scope and scale, like the shots of the kids being handed hand by hand over hundreds of people. There's just so many critical shots in there.
But for some shots, I read that you brought the divers back to recreate some scenes. Is that true?
Yeah. Wow. And so there was no footage of the actual diving, right? Because they kind of had their hands full. But we really wanted to, bring audiences into the cave and at least show them what it was. And so, constraints are always a part of nonfiction filmmaking, and they're also the things that push you as a filmmaker. And we knew the only solutions were either A, animations or recreations. So we brought all the divers together in the UK, and we asked them to demonstrate how they did the rescue and how they dive in caves. And authenticity is like hugely important to us. So. And accuracy is also really important to us. And it turns out that divers felt the same way. They were like, no, we need to make sure that people get...
But they do this for fun.
Yeah, they do
so
this
they're
for
willing
fun.
to go back in.
Yeah, well, they were like, this is a great excuse to go diving.
That's
it's
right.
kind of like getting Alex to go shoot a climbing scene. Okay, I'll go climbing. But they came back and we were really detailed. We had kind of, most of the narrative had been sorted out, so we knew what pieces we wanted, and we'd say, okay, what did you guys do when you came out in Chamber 9 at this moment? And they would actually demonstrate what they did, and then we were able to film it. So it's as close.
Oh, it makes it understandable. And then your graphics, of course, those wonderful pullouts, and we see how those caves interconnect.
Yeah,
without
which was
that
also,
I wouldn't have any idea what we were.
Yeah, which was also really important to us, and we were really fortunate because National Geographic had a scan done of the entire cave for a previous project, so we inherited that. And
they are friends of yours.
Yeah, and so it's actually 100% accurate. Like those animations really show what the cave looks like, how it's shaped, what's underwater, what's not underwater. But the hardest part was just trying to figure out, how do you show a cave in the ground? So our poor VFX teams, we drove them crazy because, it's kind of embedded into the landscape. Turns out illustrating what a cave looks like is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it worked. I mean, it really made sense. This really is the diver's story.
Yeah.
100%, which is why it feels connective to the other stories you've told. But had you had access to the kids and their stories, would that have changed the route you were taking with this, you think?
I mean, not much, because we were really interested in, as the title suggests, the rescue. But we did think it was really important, just in terms of representation as Asian filmmakers, and if we weren't, but the mythology, the belief systems, like trying to bring those ideas to the forefront. I think we all get trapped in this idea that our belief system is the only real belief system. Well, everybody feels that way. and their belief system in northern Thailand is very real to them. And
that's part of what saved the kids. I mean, the coach taken through meditation practice, the bracelets.
And who's to say that it wasn't the monk? I mean, it's just to present multiple perspectives, to share the perspectives of the Thai Navy SEALs, of the Thai Royal Army, everything that they contributed. And the divers will be the first ones to say, there's no way we could have done this without the Thai Navy SEALs bringing in all the tanks and like managing all those logistics. It was a huge, as you saw, there were thousands of people involved. And it really was this collective effort that made it possible.
People coming together to save 13 lives.
Yeah.
Thanet, is it true that this was kind of a side project for you, doing the kind of groundwater storage work you do? You actually own a restaurant? Is that true?
Yes. Accurately, yeah. So my full-time job actually running a restaurant in Illinois, a Thai restaurant, by the way. Have you guys got a chance?
It's a burger joint, right?
It's not a burger joint, no. Huh?
Got a good discount. So anyhow, I also work as the groundwater experts with the Thai government. We were advising them how to actually, help the farmers save enough water for a drought season, for their irrigation. So whenever that happened, the Royal Thai Army, Colonel Singhanat, gave me a call because they have the problem of the more water they pumps out, the more water is coming in. So they couldn't figure what went wrong or what can we do to improve the situation. So I went in and I and them, we came up with the plans of diverting the waters away. So we stopped water from filling up the cave from its original source. As I was pumping the water out, those two efforts were actually, what make a huge differences in terms of the water condition inside.
So the caves would have been fully flooded long before the kids would have gotten out without this work?
Oh, no. So when the kid went in, the cave is completely dry. Dry. The crazy thing is, if I don't really get it, is when the kid went in, the rain outside, it was not that hard. So it's just like a light rain. So no one could think that the cave would be flooded so quick within a couple hours. But the problem is the rain has been raining for so many days, so the ground was heavily saturated. And then because of the cave system are made out of limestone, so the catchment area of the cave is about 10,000 acres, which is extended not in Thailand side, but across to Myanmar side. So when it rained within that 10,000 acre, the water would find its way through cracks and holes, fill up the caves and turn it into underground river, basically. Even when the army went in the first day, when they know about the kid is missing inside the cave, they bring in these pumps, and the SEAL went in there as well. There was 2 army divers went in there, and none of them thinks that the water could flood the whole chamber, huge chamber, a kilometer inside within hours. So there were a time when they actually run for their life because the water coming so fast. One of the stories that we didn't put in the film was one of the army divers went in, and if you remember in the film, there was the water coming from the north side and then the south side, right? It met at a T-junction, and then it all flow out to the entrances. So when they bring that gasoline pumps in, they start pumping the water from that sump. So the diver could actually dive in and save the boys, which is just like, on that day, the boy was just a few feet away from the rescue worker. And then the water coming so fast, and then they started a gasoline pump. Because there was a gasoline pump, there was the smoke within the room. So it consumed oxygen. So they stopped the pump. When they stopped doing that, because they were so close to the boys, one of the army diver decided to just lay himself down and block the waters. So the other diver could actually dive into that sump. But because so much waters, they decided to retreat. And I mean, by retreat, I mean, they ran for their life. It was so fast. It was a huge flow of water coming from who knows. Yeah. But basically it's a groundwater system. It's really hard to explain this. Yeah.
We need a whiteboard. Have you heard from the divers recently? What's their?
Yeah.
I mean, we saw a little bit what happened.
We've
Decorated
been
by the
hanging out with
royals.
them. They were just in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, for the New York premiere, and we've been hanging out with them quite a bit. They are quite extraordinary and really funny. And we had Derek and Mitch from the U.S. Air Force PJs with us in New York. And we had this really fun dinner the night before the premiere. Quite a few drinks had been had. And just to see, the camaraderie and the dynamic between Rick and John, who's very, very serious and dry, and Mitch and Derek. Derek's the guy that was like, what does the impossible look like? And then they tell him, and he says, that's a terrible idea. But what if it's the only idea? I mean, it was just a hilarious evening, kind of observing these characters and having them recount all these different stories from the...
They're just regular guys. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, an electrician, a meteorologist, Craig from Australia is a veterinarian. I mean, an IT consultant.
That's what makes this story so
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, they weren't there for pay. They weren't there for glory. They
they're
knew they
volunteers.
could do the job. They volunteered.
They're volunteers.
Like so many did on that project. We're opening this at here in this very room come Monday, but of course it's going to get a release across the country.
Yes.
Theatrical. See it in the theater, please. That was gorgeous.
Thank you.
Shoot a beautiful film.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really shows on the screen.
Thank you so much for...
So I thank you both
Yes.
so much for coming
Thank
to
you,
us.
Dan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.